pick a fight every chance you get.
What are you talking about? I was sitting there minding my business and baby said something and you turned around to me.
Listen, can we talk in private?
Oh Lord, here we go to talk in private.
I just want to stop fighting with Yandy. I want to get to a place where we can talk peacefully with each other without animosity or pointing the fingers and just talk to each other out of love. You hear a scream, right? Don't come back here.
Why do we need to talk in private? Mendeecees has already said what it is, what he feels, what he thinks, and what he wants the world to think. I'm not into rewriting history with you.
Look, you see what that sign say?
Friends gather here. Oh, yeah, we're friends.
What's wrong with friends?
Nothing. Excited to be your friend.
I don't think you don't understand the concept. So I'm trying to lighten the mood with casual jokes and, here come Yandy, coming swinging. It just leaves me questioning, was the good ever good enough to outweigh the bad? Listen, you keep choosing violence.
I'm not choosing violence. You don't see what you do. Every time somebody say, oh, Mendeecees, I'm mad at you. It was Yandy. Y'all cheaters. But it was Yandy. It's like everything is Yandy.
Let me tell you something. So if you say I got unaddressed anger, I think you got unaddressed accountability.
I just did it the other day.
Right.
So you can drop that.
All right, and then you can drop the anger. I can't argue with you.
Have you noticed that I haven't been the one arguing?
Let me tell you something. You're going to make me drop my car.
I've been quiet.
Leave me alone. Stop arguing with me. You pick a fight every chance you get.
What are you talking about? I was sitting there minding my business and baby said something and you turned around to me and said, you don't defend me. I was minding my business. Last night I said absolutely no words and someone came to me.
All right, listen. I already can see where this is going. And I'm about to get up and run. No, I'm too tired.
That way and then you'll see a cliff with some water.
And I'm a jump right there. Just to not argue.
I don't know what Mendeecees wants or what he thinks I owe him. I'm not giving no more accountability than I've given. Because you're not even owed that, to be honest with you. But this is it. I have nothing else to offer. Is this conversation over?
I really don't have any major expectations right now other than just being able to communicate it in a peaceful, healthy situation with you.
Okay. I think that, we just have to figure out how to navigate this single co-parent life and navigate it well.
What?
Nothing.
So are you going to New York? Back to New York?
You keep asking me that. I don't have nothing. I finished my business in New York.
You're always in New York, so I thought you...
Stop asking me that.
So what was that reference to New York?
Yeah, you know what I meant by... Anybody know what I meant by how I said have fun New York? That's where the dude is at. Yeah, she know what I meant. That was a light jab right there. You know what's in New York. That wee-wee, fight for your family. How many you want me to fight? That's why she got up. Yeah, have fun in New York. Why you keep telling me my life? You don't know my life.
And you don't see nothing wrong with this.
You keep telling me my life. That's right after you did the scene with Keisha said, I did chill in the baby mother's. And what else you did chill with the baby mother? What else you did?
If you want to do the what else you did moment, to a lot of what else you did.
A whole lot of what you did moment.
Right.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
This fake relationship.
Yeah. But that's what the world thinks. That's what the world thinks.
Because you ain't get exposed.
Expose me.
You've been single the whole relationship. 10 years and act like you happy to marry. You never happy to get married. You single since day one. You want the truth to come out? You want the truth to come out? Let's do that on TV. Let's do that on TV.
There are some arguments that explode with yelling, tears, and chaos. But then there are arguments that feel even heavier because one person is no longer screaming, no longer defending, no longer begging to be understood. They are just calm, detached, emotionally gone. And that is exactly what made this conversation between Mendeecees and Yandy feel so different. From the very beginning, you could tell Mendeecees was frustrated, not just annoyed, not just upset, but genuinely shaken. Because for the first time, it looked like Yandy was not reacting the way he expected her to. She was not feeding into the emotional back and forth. She was not trying to prove her love. She was not fighting to save the relationship in the same way she may have done before. And that silence, that calmness, that emotional distance, it seemed to hit him harder than any argument ever could. For years, their relationship has played out in front of the public with drama, loyalty, tension, forgiveness, and repeated emotional pressure. Yandy has often been seen as the person trying to hold things together, trying to protect the image, trying to keep the family strong even when things behind the scenes looked complicated. But this time, something felt different. This was not the energy of a woman trying to win an argument. This was the energy of a woman who may have already made peace with losing the relationship. And that is what made the whole conversation so intense. Mendeecees came into the conversation looking like he still expected emotional access to her. He wanted a reaction. He wanted her to get upset. He wanted to see passion, anger, sadness, anything that proved she was still fully invested in him emotionally. But instead, Yandy stayed calm. She spoke like someone who was tired of repeating the same cycle. That calmness seemed to bother him more than anger ever could. Because when someone is angry, it usually means they still care enough to fight. But when someone becomes calm after being hurt too many times, that can mean they are no longer trying to change the outcome. They are simply accepting it. And that is where Mendeecees appeared to lose control of the conversation. The more Yandy remained composed, the more irritated he seemed to become. It was almost like he was waiting for the old version of her to show up. The version who would argue, explain, cry, defend, or try to convince him that the relationship was still worth saving. But that version of Yandy did not appear. Instead, she shifted the conversation toward co-parenting, toward moving forward, toward dealing with reality instead of emotions. And that shift said more than any dramatic speech could have. Because when a woman stops talking about fixing the relationship and starts talking about how to peacefully exist separately, that means something has changed deep inside her. This was not just a disagreement. This felt like an emotional turning point. Mendeecees seemed like someone realizing too late that the relationship dynamic had changed. The confidence he may have once had in these conversations did not seem to work anymore. Whatever emotional control he thought he had was slipping, because Yandy was no longer giving him the response he wanted. And that is a hard moment for anyone to face. Sometimes people do not realize how much someone has been carrying until that person finally puts the weight down. They do not notice the emotional labor, the public defense, the private pain, the constant forgiving, until the person who used to keep everything together finally stops trying. That is what this conversation felt like. Yandy looked exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. She seemed like someone who had already argued in her mind 1,000 times before this conversation even happened. She did not appear shocked by his emotions. She did not appear desperate to change his perspective. She looked like someone who had heard enough, felt enough, and reached a place where peace mattered more than proving a point. And that kind of emotional exhaustion is powerful. Because people often think the end of a relationship happens in one big dramatic moment. But most of the time, relationships end slowly. They end in repeated disappointments. They end in conversations that never change anything. They end when one person keeps hopping things will get better, until one day they simply stop hopping. That may be what the audience was witnessing here. Mendeecees' frustration seemed to come from more than just the topic of the argument. It looked like he was reacting to the fact that Yandy was no longer emotionally available in the same way. She was not leaning into the fight. She was not giving him the emotional performance he expected. And that can be terrifying for someone who is used to being fought for. Because when someone stops fighting, it does not always mean they are weak. Sometimes it means they finally found strength. What stood out most was the contrast between them. Mendeecees seemed emotional, tense, and reactive. Yandy seemed calm, guarded, and focused on the future. He appeared to want emotional reassurance. She appeared to want emotional distance. That difference told the real story. This was not just two people arguing about what happened. This was two people standing in completely different emotional places. Mendeecees still seemed to be inside the conflict, trying to pull her back into the emotional storm. Yandy seemed like she was already stepping outside of it, looking at the bigger picture, and deciding what kind of peace she wanted for herself and her family. And that is why viewers connected with this moment. Because many people have been in a situation where they finally stop reacting. They stop crying. They stop begging. They stop trying to explain their pain to someone who keeps misunderstanding it. And from the outside, that calmness may look cold, but inside, it usually comes after a long period of hurt. Yandy's calmness did not feel empty. It felt earned. It felt like the calm after years of emotional storms. And Mendeecees seemed to feel that distance immediately. The more she stayed focused, the more he appeared unsettled. It was as if he could sense that this was not the same argument they had before. This was not another round in the same cycle. This was something deeper, something final, something that suggested Yandy might actually be done trying to save what kept hurting her. That possibility seemed to shake him. Because there is a big difference between someone saying they are done and someone acting like they are done. Words can be emotional. Words can be said in anger. But behavior, energy, detachment, that is harder to ignore. And Yandy's energy spoke loudly. She did not have to raise her voice to make it clear that something had changed. She did not have to attack him. She did not have to break down. Her calmness became the message. And that is what made the moment so powerful. This conversation also opened a larger public interest discussion about emotional labor in relationships. When one person is constantly expected to forgive, defend, repair, explain, and protect the relationship image, eventually that person can become drained. Love alone is not enough when respect, accountability, and emotional safety are missing. At some point, even the strongest person gets tired. And when that happens, the relationship may still exist on paper, but emotionally it can already be over. That is what this scene felt like. Two people sitting together, but emotionally standing miles apart. Mendeecees appeared to still want the old emotional rhythm. Yandy seemed to be creating a new boundary. He wanted a reaction. She wanted peace. He wanted to pull the conversation back into feelings. She wanted to talk about moving forward in a healthier way. And that is why the argument felt so uncomfortable. Because it was not just about who was right or wrong. It was about acceptance. It was about realizing that the relationship may no longer be operating from the same emotional foundation. For Mendeecees, it may have felt like losing control. For Yandy, it may have felt like finally gaining it. And that shift is huge. When someone who used to fight for the relationship starts speaking calmly about co-parenting and separation, it means they are no longer trying to convince the other person to value them. They are trying to protect their own peace. That is the part that many people understood immediately. Yandy did not look like someone who wanted revenge. She looked like someone who wanted relief. And sometimes relief only comes when you stop trying to make someone understand your pain and start choosing yourself. This is why Mendeecees' reaction stood out so much. His frustration seemed less about the specific words being said and more about the emotional wall he was now facing. He could not easily reach her anymore. He could not trigger the same response. He could not pull her back into the emotional cycle the way he may have expected. And when the usual pattern stops working, the truth becomes impossible to avoid. The relationship dynamic had changed. Whether they admit it or not, this conversation looked like a moment where both of them were forced to face reality. Yandy may still care. Mendeecees may still care too. But caring does not always mean a relationship is healthy. Caring does not erase exhaustion. Caring does not fix broken trust overnight. Sometimes two people can love each other and still be tired of hurting each other. And that is what made this moment feel so real. There was no need for dramatic background music, no need for over-the-top shouting. The tension was in the silence. The pain was in the pauses. The truth was in the way Yandy refused to emotionally chase the conversation. She was not performing heartbreak. She was showing emotional closure. And Mendeecees seemed to realize it in real time. That is why this conversation will stay with people. Not because it was the loudest argument, but because it may have been one of the most honest. It showed what happens when one person is still trying to pull emotion from someone who has already started letting go. And that is a painful thing to watch. Because once someone reaches that point, it is not easy to bring them back. At the end of the day, this was not just a fight between Mendeecees and Yandy. It was a reminder that relationships do not fall apart only because of one argument. They fall apart when patterns go unchanged for too long. They fall apart when one person keeps carrying the emotional weight until they finally cannot carry it anymore. And when that person becomes calm, distant, and focused on peace, it may already be too late. Yandy's calmness was not weakness. It was a warning. And Mendeecees' frustration showed that he felt it too.